Hi everyone, welcome to Learn to Fly Melbourne. I'm one of the instructors here and my name is Clement. Today we are going to talk about navigation. In the last episode on how to plan a navigation exercise, we have had a chat about how to plot the route on the map, how to measure the distance and track. And on the flight plan sheet, we would have already filled out the position, tracks in magnetic degree and distance. The next step is to assess and interpret weather forecasts to determine the cruising altitude. One of the biggest determining factor of cruising altitude is the height of the cloud base. As we'll be operating VFR visual flight rules, we're not permitted to fly into clouds. In Australia, to obtain the weather forecast, we go on the website called Notams. On Notams, after you have logged in, go on to location briefing, enter the ICAO code of the airport to obtain all kinds of weather information. The weather we'll be obtaining from Notams will mainly be the TAF, Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. Although the TAF only covers 5 nautical miles immediately surrounding the airport, it provides weather forecasts with a high level of accuracy and great details. When conducting a navigation exercise, we'll be flying out of this 5 nautical mile area. During the en route phase of the flight, we'll be relying on the area briefing to provide graphical area forecast and grid point wind temperature forecast. In this piece of weather, you can find Melbourne and Latrobe's TAF. Like I've said, TAF is only valid for 5 miles around the airport. What we can see here is that the weather becomes valid on the 19th at 6 in the morning. Wind will be coming from 230 degree at 12 knots, capital K. It stands for ceiling and visibility OK. What it means is there will be no cloud below 5,000 feet and visibility is better than 10 kilometers. It does have other meanings, but for the purpose of this lesson, it means the weather is relatively good for our operation. The TAF becomes valid from 6 AM. However, it is not in Melbourne time, but in UTC time. In February, daylight saving is in effect in Melbourne, so the conversion is UTC plus 11. 6 plus 11 is 5 PM, so if we take that into consideration, from 5 PM at Melbourne, wind will be coming from 230 degree at 12 knot KVOK. 230 is in true bearing, not magnetic bearing, so we have to deduct 12 degree due to magnetic variation being 12 degrees east. The actual wind direction will be closer to 218 degree magnetic 12 knot, and the in-flight condition will be really decent. If we then look at Latrobe Valley's TAF, it begins at 2 AM UTC. Converted into Melbourne time, it will be 1 PM local. At this time, wind would be 090 at 6 knot. Converted into magnetic, it would be 078 at 6 knot. Based on what we can see, the weather at both of these airports is great for our training exercise. To determine the weather outside of the TAF area, please refer to the area briefing. On this page, you can see the entire Australia's continent has been divided into different smaller areas. We first have to locate the area of Victoria, which is Area 30. You can see 1ML, which is Melbourne International Airport. When you click on it, the system will automatically generate Area 9300. Briefing period, submit, and you'll find the weather forecast for the entire Area 30. What we will need to look into is right in the middle of this piece of weather, the GAF. If we want to depart at 6 in the evening, UTC time will be 07 Zulu. You can see the validity of this GAF is from 05 Zulu to 11 Zulu, which is 4 PM to 10 PM local. If we depart at 6 PM, this GAF will be applicable to our flight. Click on it to access the GAF. First of all, let's locate the position of Melbourne. We can use the zoom function. Melbourne is around here, Latrobe Valley is around there, and Leongatha is around here. If you can't find where the airport is, please refer to the latitude and longitude that you can obtain from the ERSA. What I have found is during the entirety of our flight will be contained within Area A. So let's have a look at the weather of Area A. Area A surface visibility and weather conditions is more than 10 kilometers visibility and nil weather. The cloud that comes along with it is SCT, which is scattered. CU is cumulus. SC is stratocumulus. Cloud based at 7,000 feet and top at 9,000 in Alpha 1. It will be scattered from 07 Zulu, which is 6 PM local time, ceasing at 10 Zulu, which is 9 PM. Because the cloud base is at 7,000 feet, which means I do not have to be too concerned about the cloud as we won't be flying that high. It means our operation today would not be affected by the cloud. After assessing the cloud, we now have to look into the wind. We'll click on the GPWT grid point wind temperature forecast. However, we'll have to click on the correct one depending on our departure time. Our planned departure time is 6 PM, which is 07 Zulu. So we can now have a look at the one that's from 06 Zulu. After opening it up, you can see many grid boxes. We have to locate the airport and the route. We can again use the lat long of the airport to locate the route. Melbourne is roughly here, Latrobe is around here, and Leongatha is around there. So we should be assessing those 3 boxes here. Before we do that, we first have to determine the cruising altitude of our flight today. As the cloud was not a factor, from Melbourne to Latrobe Valley, we will try to fly as high as we practically can. As we're heading towards Latrobe, we'll be flying eastbound, and according to the VFR hemispherical cruising level, when flying east, we will fly at odd level plus 500 feet, such as 1,500, 3,500, 5,500, 7,500, or even 9,500. And because of that, we'll be flying at 5,500 feet today. So let's assess the wind at 5,500. There are 6 lines in each of the grid box. It indicates the wind at different altitude. If you look at the legend at the top right corner, the bottom is the wind at 1,000 feet, the second line is at 2,000, then 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, and flight level 140. We'll be flying at 5,500, so we can use the information on the third line at 5,000 feet. You can see it shows 36,008 plus 12. The format according to the legend is DD, FFF, TTT. DD stands for wind direction tenths of degree true. 36 stands for 360 degree true, so we have to convert it into magnetic, which is 348 degrees magnetic. FFF is wind speed. It is forecasted to be at 8 knots, so the actual wind is from 348 degrees magnetic at 8 knots. TTT is temperature in degrees Celsius. Plus 12 degree means icing is no factor, so it's all good. After obtaining the wind from the forecast, let's fill it in on the planning sheet 348 at 8 knots, and that is for one leg. Now I'm going to finish all the other legs. As we'll be crossing 2 different grid blocks during the leg from Latrobe Valley to Leongatha, I'll be averaging the data from both of the grids. Because we'll be flying westbound, we are required to fly in even level plus 500 feet. For example, 2,500, 4,500, 6,500, 8,500. And because of this is a relatively short leg, 4,500 would be an optimum level of cruising. Cruising at 4,500 allows us to use the wind at 5,000 feet, and at this box, at 5,000 feet, the wind is 350 at 3 knots. Deducting the variation makes it 338 at 3 knots, and at this box is 290 at 10 knots, minus 12 is 278 at 10 knots. Assuming we'll be spending approximately equal amount of time in each of those boxes, I'll be averaging those figures, so the averaged wind would be coming from 308 magnetic at 7 knots. From Leongatha to Carrum, we can maintain cruising at 4,500 as the route will be within 2 boxes. We can average the wind out as before. We can then calculate the wind all the way back to Melbourne, and that's it. After assessing the wind, open up the area briefing again to obtain the area QNH. 04 to 07 is the validity period. South of YNHL, YMNG, and YWGT is 1017. The rest of the area is 1014. To locate those airports, we can use the PCA chart. Open up the PCA chart, connect those airports with straight lines. South of this line, QNH is 1017. The rest is 1014. After assessing the graphical area forecast and the grid point wind and temperature forecast, we can now have a look into the Notams of all the airports that we'll be visiting. Notam stands for Notice to Airmen. It works like an online notice board for that particular airport. If the airport that we're visiting has work being done or require attention of the pilots before arrival, there will be a Notam published online. So we'll now have a look at the Notam to ensure that at Latrobe Valley, Leongatha and Melbourne have no operative restrictions. After assessing the weather forecast, if there are any concerning weather conditions, such as low cloud or thunderstorm, then we have to appropriately amend our flight plan. For the training purposes of today's flying, we're assuming that the condition will be really good and there will be no concern, so we can proceed as planned. After determining the cruising altitude, fill in the altitude column. From Melbourne to Latrobe Valley, we'll be cruising at 5,500 and we'll put it down as A055. From Latrobe to Leongatha, it's 4,500, so it will be A045. From Carrum to Melbourne, we'll be at 1,500 as per the inbound procedure, so it will be A015. Assuming there is no other weather concerns, we can now move on to the next part of our preparation. Depending on the wind direction and wind speed, the ground speed and heading of the aircraft will have to be appropriately adjusted to maintain track. To calculate heading and ground speed, we'll use the flight computer. Firstly, account the wind by using the backside of the flight computer. we move from the outer ring to the inner ring. On the outer ring, you can see the true airspeed. Our planned true airspeed is 120 knots, so point the true airspeed arrow onto 12, which is 120. Secondly, use the inner ring to illustrate the wind direction and speed. The wind is coming from 348 degrees at 8 knots, so align 348 degrees with TC, which stands for true course. After aligning them, look for 8 knots along the y-axis. And you can see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So at 8 knots it's about at this point, and we can draw a dot on the grid. Next, spin the inner ring until the true course aligns with the planned magnetic track. From Melbourne to Latrobe, the magnetic track is 090. Align it with true course and have a look at where the dot is. You can see we have roughly 1 knot of tailwind. And if the dot is below the x-axis, it indicates tailwind, as you can see here at the bottom. And there's a plus sign, which means we have to add the tailwind on the true airspeed. So the ground speed is 120 plus 1, which is 121, and we can put this on the flight plan sheet. At the same time, you can see the wind is coming from the rear left side, so there will be some crosswind. Based on the x-axis, we have about 8 knots of crosswind from the left. And there's a negative sign, which means we have to deduct the magnetic track for the heading calculation. As we have 8 knots of crosswind, have a look at the outer white ring for 8 knots of wind. As it doesn't have 8, we can use 80. From the 80 mark, line it up to the blue degree ring. It is between 3.5 and 4 degrees. So we can round it up to 4 degrees. Take the 4 degrees out of the magnetic track, 090 minus 4 is 086, and this is the heading we'll be flying. What that means is, if the wind is coming at 348 degrees magnetic at 8 knots, the true airspeed of the aircraft is 120 knots, the planned track is 090 degrees magnetic, the heading required to maintain track will be 086, to allow us to take the drift into consideration to maintain track 090 all the way to Latrobe Valley. Ground speed is 121 knots. As now we have distance and ground speed, it will be possible to calculate the time interval required between waypoints. To calculate the time interval, use the front side of the flight computer. You can see the 2 main rings on this side. The white ring is for distance and the blue ring is for time. On the blue ring, look for the big arrow with 1 hour written on it. Use this arrow to point at the ground speed of the aircraft, which is 121 knots as we have calculated. As there is no 121 knot on the ring, we can use 12.1. After that, look for the distance of that leg, which is 66 miles. Look for 66 miles on the white ring. For 66, align it to the blue ring, which is about 32.5. Round it up to 33 minutes. When we're flying, we won't be flying level for the entire leg. The initial part of the leg will be climbing to the cruising altitude, which airspeed would be lower. Therefore, we add an extra minute for every 2,000 feet of climb, as we'll be climbing to 5,500, rounded up to 6,000, so an additional 3 minutes is required. 33 plus 3 is 36 minutes, and we'll put it in the ETI box from Melbourne to Latrobe Valley. After completing all of the estimated time of interval of all the legs, we'll get a sum of the ETIs. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our Learn to Fly YouTube channel and give us a like. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.